Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of In Conversation with Evolving HR. My guest this week is Becky Hewson-Haworth. Hi Becky, thank you for joining me.
Hello.
I found out about you via Katie Murray. I seem to remember, and we're looking at a couple of years ago now, I think. Because I couldn't believe, when I first met Katie, I couldn't believe that there was any such thing as an HR copywriter. And then she said, well, you want to meet Becky because she specifically does reward communication. I was like, no way, that's a thing too. And so that was how we connected. And I think my initial intro email to you probably said something along those lines, like, you do something that I'm really interested in that I didn't know people did. Do you want to just start us off by telling us your story? Like, how have you ended up doing reward comms specifically?
Yeah, so I am a bit super niche. That wasn't the intention, but that's where I've ended up. And I often like to say I'm a bit weird in many ways, but the way that counts for this conversation is my background. So I got a degree in English and then went into reward. So from words to numbers. Don't really know how that happened, but it did. And then I worked in reward roles for about 10 years across a range of different industries, public sector to start with, doing job evaluation. Then I went into financial services, and that was a very mature reward organisation. So they were very advanced with how they did reward, and that's where I cut my teeth. And I was like, oh, this is reward, like all of this. So learned all of that, and then went off to manufacturing, where I put my first reward strategy in place, looked after UK and Poland plants, an American-owned business, and then went from there to consulting in the energy sector. Was meant to take a step back for health reasons, but ended up getting promoted onto the HR leadership team, and I was part of the European reward team. And yeah, so I was like, oh, that wasn't the plan. And then my health didn't play ball, so I handed my notice in, basically, long story short. So I handed my notice in and completely changed jobs. So the thing I said at the start, that I had a degree in English, I went right back to what I wanted to do originally, which was to work in advertising. So I retrained to work in marketing, became a freelance copywriter, and it's the wild, wild west for copywriters. You print a business card, you put up a website that says I'm a copywriter and you're a copywriter. So that was it. I was very lucky to get mentored by somebody right from the get-go. And within 3 years, I'd written stuff for Microsoft and big companies like that. So kind of worked for me. So I kind of got there. And then I just thought, I wish when I worked in reward, I'd known about all the things I know about now in terms of how to communicate properly, understand your audiences, craft narratives, messaging. And I just thought, why don't I put the reward knowledge together with the communications knowledge and do reward comms? So that's what I've specialised in for the last 6-ish years. Yeah.
Do you know how much I love this? There is such a theme or a consistency with so many of the evolving HR providers that people have taken the various bits of knowledge that they have from different parts of their career and created a business out of that. So my previous guest was June Hogan, who started out in HR and then was a coach and then had a bad experience of redundancy, and so decided to do outplacement support and outplacement coaching. And so much of it, I think for many of us, comes down to wanting to provide a solution that didn't exist for them in a previous iteration of their career. And you've just said the exact same thing. And I love that. It's that, I don't know, there's something so creative about, pulling those different strands together and thinking, well, this wasn't done properly, so I'm going to be the one to do it properly.
Yeah, do you know what? That's exactly it. Because when I was in reward roles, I knew that the comms was really important, but we could never get to them. So we'd spend ages designing pulling the data, designing the frameworks, making sure everything aligned properly, that, when you put money in a certain place or incentivize certain behaviors, they were the right things to do. So all great, but I had a conversation with a senior team member in one of my roles, and they were on the long-term incentive plan. So the the big bucks bonus, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to me, "Oh yeah, I don't really know how that works." And I was just like, oh, I was just aghast. I was like, oh God. So I quickly went and checked how much she'd got paid on the spreadsheet for the last few years. And I was like, bloody hell, like huge sums of money.
Yeah.
But because she didn't understand how it worked, it was just money that was being thrown away, essentially, because, you know, the whole point is it incentivizes the right behaviors and outputs. And if people don't understand it, then they can't. So I thought, gosh, like there is a need for reward comms. It's just, yeah. And the problem is a lot of companies don't know it exists, that you can get this support is out there. Yeah.
No, I mean, and God, I could talk for hours about this, because I mean, one of these previous conversations was with Adam Bell from Wingate Benefit Solutions, and we were talking about how the take up can be so low with benefits and different types of incentive in so many organizations. And he said this as well, and I agree, the communication of those benefits is a significant failing in so many organizations. I mean, I had a coaching client who was head of benefits for a massive cosmetics company, like household name cosmetics company. And she spent most of her time answering questions from employees who didn't have a clue what they were entitled to, what they had. And they did these amazing things, like they had a mortgage advisor who came in once a month and did a clinic. They had a financial advisor who came in once a month and did a clinic, and anybody could go to these things and just book an appointment, little things like that, and no one knew that they existed. So there is an enormous gap around the communication of benefits. And I think about in my own HR career, anytime we ever implemented anything, that side of things was not done well. It was like one email.
It's the last thing in the project plan, right? It's the last thing. It's like, yeah, we'll do all this. And then one line, comms. Comms.
100%. Also happens with restructures and redundancies, but that's a separate conversation. Like the comms is the last thing. But so where do you find that, you know, what sort of work do you do for clients then? Where is it most needed? Does it tend to be around, do people bring you in when they're introducing new reward systems, or to sort of remind people of what they've already got? Just talk through that a little bit.
Mostly change. So there's a new bonus scheme, or the bonus scheme's being changed, or the LTIP's being changed. That's quite often a big driver. Things like career frameworks that also link to pay. That's a big one as well, but that's for typically quite mature organizations who've got structures in place and joined them all up. Benefits, I mean, benefits change all the time. So I've just finished up a project on company acquisition. So they're bringing some of the employees across into the UK, and it was a proposed benefits changes comms. So that's for one of my agency clients. So it was laying out all of the proposed changes, which is quite interesting. So it can be a real mixed bag, but typically there's some sort of change, and that's what drives the need for communications, rather than, oh, actually we've decided we suddenly just want to communicate. It sort of doesn't tend to really work like that.
It's a funny old thing, isn't it? Why? Because again, you know, my brain's sort of doing its thing in the background. Most of the employee relations issues I've ever dealt with could have been solved if communication had been better in the first place. So it's such a fundamental part in getting things right. So
well, I think of it like products and services. So I think that your reward package are your products and services for your employees. It's the what's in it for me, you know, and we wouldn't have a new product or a service for a company and then just not market it and just suddenly expect everybody to know about it. It's exactly the same for employee benefits, for all the different programs and schemes that you put in place. Like, why wouldn't you tell people about it? Like, because you're just throwing away money. And the other thing I like to say, which people who have seen any of my LinkedIn content will see this line more than once, but I always say that most businesses, pay, pensions, incentives, benefits, your total reward, that is your biggest budget line or your second biggest budget line. And if you're not leveraging it, if people don't see the clear line of sight between my objectives, my performance related pay, all the benefits, etc., that are there to support them, you are not leveraging your single biggest line item on your budget, which makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Zero sense.
Yeah.
Zero sense. I mean, that is crazy. So how do people, I don't know, how do I want to phrase this? It's not like, where do they find you, like, what's your website? But how do people become aware that this is something that would be useful for them? What are some of your kind of client journeys? What have they been?
Oh gosh, I'm just trying to think of how did I meet some of the different people. So when I sort of early stages of starting to do this work, it was as simple as the global reward director for Coca-Cola. I was quite lucky. He went on LinkedIn and just put total reward communications, and I popped up and one other person in America popped up, and that was it. There was two of us.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's changed slightly now, because I did actually meet somebody who does the same as me the other day for the first time in 10 years, which is very exciting. So it is sometimes as straightforward as, I need this, and people find me on LinkedIn. Sometimes it's sort of connections, somebody saying, oh yeah, we're struggling with this, and then a referral on. So yeah, okay, I know I need to do something around comms, but I don't really know what that looks like. Yeah, and a big part of it, people don't know, oh, you can get reward comms support. That's the thing. It's starting to be much more of a thing. More agencies are doing it. Not just the big boys, not just the, Gallagher's, Willis Towers Watsons. It's starting to become part of the overall reward consultancy offer as well.
Right. I wonder what it was that made that the reward director from Coca-Cola. I wonder what the issue was that made them Google that day, or made them look on LinkedIn. There must have been something. I see what you mean. Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, what made them even think of it? Like, this is what we refresh.
It was a refresh.
Gotcha.
They've done a lot of comms, great comms actually, like really good comms. But they were saying, okay, we need to like refresh, get some of this out, really think about the positioning and realigning with the business. So obviously, as the business changes, as strategy changes, perhaps values or behaviours change, not necessarily at Coca-Cola, but anywhere, then everything that follows from that needs to be retweaked, and particularly reward, because another thing I say is, you put your money where your mouth is. God, I've got all these phrases I didn't even know. Like a catchphrase.
Like catchphrase queen.
You put your money where your mouth is. So if you want people to do specific things, you align your reward budget with those things to drive the right performance and outcomes. So if your business strategy and your values change, then your reward, comms, and your positioning all needs to realign with it. So I think that's really probably why it's mostly change driven, is just to keep up with the business change, which as we know is pretty much every day at the moment, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's I mean, honestly, I feel like since COVID, the world of work and like the culture in organizations and the way that businesses work has just been constantly changing, because you've got the advent of AI within that as well. Oh God, that's just made me think of something. I bet there are loads of organizations that are doing their reward comms with like ChatGPT, and I bet it's like really cheesy and generic.
I bet some will be. I mean, the good thing about AI is it gets you forward faster, which is fine. Yeah. The bad thing about AI is you only know what good looks like if you know what good looks like. So you need to have that knowledge and that expertise to be able to say, okay, this has got me so far, but here's what I need to do to make it actually really good. So there's that side of things. And so it can only go so far. I mean, how much of your compensation strategy and your bonus plan and everything are you willing to stick in an AI system?
And how? Yeah, because there's a confidentiality issue as well. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
So is it like, sort of by its nature, does it tend to be like enterprise-sized organizations that you work with, the ones that have like specific dedicated reward teams and really focus on that sort of thing, or do you work with smaller organizations as well?
Yeah, total range. So really big organizations with reward. So what typically happens is reward people say, yeah, I'm really good at numbers and data, and yeah, frameworks and processes and stuff, but words are just they're not my bag. I'm just not confident with that. And why should reward people be good at that as well? They're two quite different skill sets.
Yeah.
But smaller businesses as well. So I helped a lovely IT company, one of my favourite clients, the lovely Taylor, name check. They'd put in some really good competency frameworks, and they'd also done some work with the Flex Benefits platform. So they'd invested in flexible benefits, but a small team, sort of, very small, sort of two, 3 people on the team, and just not enough capacity to do the comms to leverage that spend on the flexible benefits platform. So yeah, I just sort of got them up and running really, and said, right, here's what you need to do. Here's a plan. I'll show you how to do the first couple, and then on you go. So it doesn't have to be all singing or dancing. It can be enough to send people on their way with confidence. Yeah.
Yeah. If there are people watching this who are working in sort of HR or reward, what are some of the kind of the mistakes that people make that, what advice would you give them if they're like wanting to start doing this better?
So don't just send an all-employee email and think, tick, comms done. That's what I did in reward. I was like, yeah, all-employee email.
The most frequent approach, isn't it?
Tick. I've done that line on the project plan. Next project, please. Yeah. And also don't tell people that you're delighted to announce, because they don't really care that you're delighted to announce something you've spent ages working on. You can always count on me for the unvarnished truth. So know your audience. So think about who you're communicating with, why, what do you want them to think, feel, and do. You can get that kind of structure in place. That really helps you refine your communications. And then think about your different channels, and be a bit realistic. If it's a big change, something like bonus, your bonus scheme is changing, and you really want to educate people, really bring them along for the ride, drive change, that's a much bigger communications plan than a change to a single benefit. So not everything needs the same treatment. You need to take a sort of pragmatic, practical approach, but also bear in mind that you need people to understand and do the learning, but they're very busy. So give them the right level of information, give them lots of different opportunities to access that information, and then make it engaging, non-technical, plain English, and make it nice to look at. Like, don't wrap a gift in a plastic bag. Wrap it in some nice wrapping paper with a bow.
Don't let them open the email to a solid wall of text. This is bringing back like shuddery memories of when pension auto enrollment came in.
I did that too. Yeah.
Oh God, it was like a nightmare because no one cared. Like no one cared. It was very different. So again, it's another pension example. I worked for an organization once that moved from defined benefit to defined contribution. Everyone cared.
Yeah.
Because they knew this is going to have a significant impact on me. So I need to understand this. Auto enrollment, people were just like, yeah, whatever. And I know that we spent ages trying to get the comms right on that. And then I remember one of my colleagues being so disappointed that no one was reading the email, and I said, because it's cool, it's got pension in the title, and people so we had to put things like, action required, like you have to read this kind of thing, because otherwise, unless you put free beer, no one was even going to open the email, or free money. And it was just a faff, really, wasn't it? It still is just a faff, because we had quite a few people that wanted to opt
free
out.
money.
Yeah just anyway.
It kind of is free money, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
If you've got an employer contribution, it is free money.
I never understood why people wouldn't sign up for it. Because that organization at the time put 10% of salary in, and we probably had about 20 people out of the 100 in the office that wouldn't do it. And it wasn't like
strange, isn't it?
It's really strange. Like, early career, I get it. You don't want to put 5% of your
Yeah.
salary away to get the 10% because you're not thinking about pension and you don't earn a huge amount. But some of the traders, some of the oil traders who are like in their 40s and 50s wouldn't do it because they didn't want to put in 5%. Like, you get double back. It's really bizarre.
And your tax, if it's salary sacrifice. I had one of these, this is one of those moments like in your career that sort of stays with you. So I had a very different experience with auto enrollment. So I was responsible for putting it in and rolling it out. But I was in an organization where people were super interested in pension. Every single person wanted to know about it. They wanted to know exactly what it meant for them. It was, they'd had their fingers burned with a change from a DB to a DC scheme before. And so, of course, they were high alert. They're ripping us off again kind of thing. So, so we had a lot of focus on it. But we did the comms, we had like presentations, we had like email series, we had a new platform going out. So we had all of that to communicate. And one of the guys from the manufacturing shop floor came into my office and said, oh, can I talk to you about my pension? I've gone into the platform and I've seen that because I didn't join, I've only joined a little while ago. I've hardly got any savings and I'm due to retire in something like 10 years or something. And it was heartbreaking. And I just thought, good comms could have made a difference there. It might not have done. He might not have had the personal circumstances to be able to contribute still. But even if there had been something, just, you can't advise, of course, with pensions, otherwise it's financial advice. You kind of want to say to them, look, if you can even just stick 50 quid in a month, it will help, it will make a difference. But you can't say that. But even if you had comms, some sort of access to a financial advisor, something like that, what a massive difference that could make to somebody's life.
Absolutely. I think there's I could go off on a tangent about pensions, but I think there's such a lack of understanding and lack of interest generally from people. I was a pension trustee for a while at one company, and I loved it. I found it so interesting, but the number of people that didn't know how it actually worked when you retired and assumed that they would just get everything back that they had put in, it's like, no, it doesn't really work like that. Nobody knows what an annuity is, and because nobody tells us.
No, they don't.
Nobody tells us.
But anyway, why are we using words like annuity? Like, why not just say the amount of pension you get paid each year? Okay, it's a lot of words, but we all know what that means.
I can remember someone saying to me once that about 3 or 4 years before retirement, that's when you want to start smoking, drinking heavily, and probably doing drugs.
To get a better annuity.
a better projection, because it looks like you're going to die in about 5 years. Then they give you get a much better deal, which I always thought was quite amusing. But anyway, so no, let's move on from pensions and let's talk about the EU Pay Transparency Directive.
Is that any better, Kirsty? Let's stick with pensions. No, I'm kidding.
It is for nerds like us. But you're doing something fairly unique around that. That when you told me about it, God, it must have been 6 months ago now. When you mentioned, it was before Christmas.
Yeah, probably about 6 months.
God,
and I've still not got it over the line quite, but it's nearly there, very nearly there.
You're much closer to the line than a lot of other people are. So it's just talk to us about that. So what is the directive? Who is it going to affect, and what are you doing about it?
So any company with even one European employee is impacted by the Pay Transparency Directive. So it is basically a refocus on pay equity, pay fairness through new legislation. And it's aimed at sort of tackling some of the issues that help perpetuate the gender pay gap. So there are a series of rules. So basically how it works is the European Union comes out with a directive and they say, here's the directive, these are the standards in the directive, and all the member states now have to go away and produce their own legislation that turns the directive into local law. So the complexity is that it's not just like, here are 6 things you have to do, and those are the exact 6 things you have to do. It's, however, I should know exactly how many things there are in the directive. I think it's I can't remember. There are a number of different elements in the directive. So you've got all of those, and some of them have a bit of wiggle room for interpretation. So partly interpretation, partly the directive has said you can do this or this. So countries have got areas where they can decide how they want to apply the directive. But the other thing to remember is that the directive is the floor. So countries cannot do less than the directive. They can set local legislation so it's more stringent than the directive. So you're already going to have 27 countries with lots of different types of interpretation and different standards across multiple different areas of the directive. Some areas of the directive, they just have to be done as they are, but some... Right. There is some flex. And then, of course, you've got companies who can say, okay, well, this is the local legislation. But actually, as a company, we want to go above and beyond that. So there's a lot of different ways it could be interpreted. So
if you're, I take one of my old roles, for example, we had a refinery in the Netherlands, we had an office in Geneva, and we had a few people in France. So you've got to look at then, as the HR person or the reward person sitting in the UK, even if you've only got one person in France, you've got to look at what the French law has determined their take on this is going to be, and then look at the Dutch one, and then look at the Swiss one, and try and pull something together, or either do three completely separate things, or pull something together that's going to incorporate all of it.
Yeah. So like, that's exactly it. And some companies are just going legislative minimum across all of the different areas they operate in.
Yeah.
Some are setting what I think of as like a company standard, which is either the most stringent legislation of all the countries they operate in. So they'll use that strictest
as their baseline.
Yeah. And they may decide to go above in some areas as a company. So an example is there is flexibility in the directive around how you share pay before interviewing or hiring somebody. So it can either be that you have to publish pay rate or pay range in a job advert, or it can just be that you share it. Yeah, I know, groundbreaking. Or it can be that you share it some other way, which will probably be in an email before interview, for example, so that you've got a trail of it. So, 27 countries, they can only really be one or two of those things. But if a country decides that actually for the local legislation, they want to do it in job ads, then that then applies for that country, but it might not apply for all. But you could say as a company, actually, we're just going to put pay ranges in all of our job ads. Yeah. Same everywhere, nice and easy, nice and efficient. Yeah. But there are other elements where it's a bit more complicated than that. So I'm not going to go into it, but basically, there are some other areas where it's a bit more complicated. And in countries like France look like they're about to gold plate certain elements of the directive. So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah. So what are you doing around this?
Yeah, so the big thing is that companies are doing a lot of work in the background. Again, the reward team's very busy. They're analysing their data, looking at pay gaps to see, have we got risk? How much money might we need to spend to reduce risk, close any unobjective pay gaps? And totally lost my train of thought then. This happens. I'm better in writing.
Do you want me to pause it?
I'm back.
Yeah, okay.
Bring this back. So they're doing all this work in the background. They're putting pay frameworks in place. Most companies are probably going to take, use job evaluation framework, group your roles into different job families, and then have a grading structure which runs across so that you can compare work for equal value or like work across different job families. So that's very sensible. It's what is good practice in reward and has been since I started doing reward 20 years ago. So none of this is new. It's just the legislation that's new. So companies are doing all of this work and they're putting frameworks in place that make them compliant. But as we know, compliance in the background is not the same as operational compliance. So there's a gap between the frameworks and the people that need to implement, which is recruitment, HR and reward managers. So my communications help bridge the gap between what's the pay approach you're putting in place for your organization, and then making sure the right people have the right level of knowledge about it. And the big stakeholders in this are managers, because they are going to have to explain to employees, here's what your pay is, and here's why your pay has been set at that amount, and then here's what you can do to progress your pay. That may be relevant in some companies and countries of certain sizes, and then also employees have the right to request pay information. And the definition of pay under the EU Pay Transparency Directive is basically total reward. So it's pretty much incentives, bonuses, your pension contribution, everything, pay, allowances, it's all in there. So managers need to be able to explain all of that clearly and confidently. And the risk is that if they don't, there could be a big erosion of trust, and disengagement, lower levels of performance potentially, and turnover. Turnover could be a big risk.
What are the consequences of companies not complying from a legislative perspective? You know the word I mean, legislative.
Well, we'd all like to know that, Kirsty, but as so many countries are being very tardy with rolling out their local legislation, we don't really know. So I think I'm going to say the wrong country. I think it's Slovakia. I keep saying Slovenia, but I think it's Slovakia that has theirs up and running. So I need to go and have a look at that one, actually. There are some there's about another 5 or 6 or so who are probably going to make the June the 6th deadline. So this is meant to be going live June 6th.
Oh my God. Okay, we're recording this on the 20th of May, just for context.
It's not much work to sort out between now and 6th of June. But most countries have not sorted out local legislation.
How long have they had, just out of interest?
Several years, yeah.
Oh, for crying out loud.
So I think it's been like at least 2 years. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to be working with organizations in the UK to help them kind of navigate this and make sure that it's communicated properly and that managers know what they're doing.
Yeah, so I can work with companies on a bespoke basis, but what I realized is there's only one of me and there's an awful lot of companies out there who need this support. So I've created a toolkit, and it's basically a full ecosystem for EU pay transparency. So it's aligned with the directive, not legal advice, obviously, but it is aligned with the directive. And it's basically got 16 different elements, takes people all the way through from understanding their audience, the messaging, measuring baseline in terms of confidence and capability for managers, and then, sort of survey questions to help you measure whether your communications have shifted the needle later on. And then we've got exec briefing decks, manager briefing decks, guides, one-pagers, case studies, talking points, FAQs. Mainly it's focused on managers mostly at the moment, plus employees, but recruitment and HR it's on its way. So full ecosystem to help communicate everything you need to around EU Pay Transparency Directive, downloadable templates, and companies just come in and edit as they need, drop in their pay approach and just tweak it so it fits their company. So gets them to roll out really quick.
I love this because I don't think that anybody else is doing this, and so that's super exciting. I always love that when you've found a gap, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it pans out, because I wonder, now that the UK is no longer in the EU, are you finding that companies are even aware of this?
So some companies are. So there's a bit of confusion around who it applies to. So I said, when you said what's the EU Pay Transparency Directive, I was like, it applies if you've got one employee in the country, because people have seen. So basically, there's the gender pay gap reporting element of it. So companies will have to do gender pay gap reports. A lot of countries already do that, but it's based on a particular headcount, typically starting around 150 employees. So people have seen that and they've thought, oh, it doesn't apply. We haven't got 150 employees in any country. Well, that part might not apply to you, but all of the rest of it, except for another couple of little bits, will apply to you. So it's UK companies, even like American American-owned companies, global companies, or people in the EU.
Anyone who's got employees in a EU state.
Yeah. And I'm might be even I've got a translation service lined up so that if anybody in any country in the EU is interested, I can get it translated. Proper HR translation company. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I mean, we had to do something similar to that. So the gender pay gap stuff in the States. So when I lived and worked in the States, we had to do that, and they were thorough. They would come back and say, "You've got two people here called trader. This one is a Hispanic individual. This one is a white individual." Okay, it wasn't gender; it was also race. This is a woman. This is a man. Except we didn't have any female traders, so that's not the best example. And it was like, can you explain why their salaries are $2,000 different?
Yeah.
Or, and we had to give an explanation when it was a federal requirement. So
that's good. I didn't know that. Okay, interesting.
I believe it was. I hope I've not got that wrong. I don't think it was just Texas, but because I had to do it in Kansas as well. But they were thorough. You'd send the spreadsheets of all your pay, and they'd come back with specific questions around any gaps that they.
And that's what's happening with the Pay Transparency Directive. So if you publish your gender pay gap report and you've got a gap of 5% or more, then it triggers a joint pay assessment. You have to dive into the detail to see where have you got these gaps. And you can pay people differently. It's not just saying, people have to be paid exactly the same. You can pay them differently.
You just have to have a reason for
it. That's not gender-based. Yeah. So is it skills, experience, qualifications? Are they bringing something different to the job compared to, somebody else? So, and like I say, this is all stuff that I learned 20 years ago when I first started working in financial services. So it's been around for a long time.
It's just funny though, isn't it? Because there's been a move away from like grading systems and pay bands. I think for a while there, people were thinking that seemed a little old-fashioned, and we're just going to do, we're a meritocracy, and we're just going to do, we'll choose the numbers that we feel are right. But I think it's led to no difference in that gender pay gap and bigger issues that when did I start working in HR? 1998. And the issues are just the same today as they were then. So it's probably about time that there was some legislation in place. Do you think it'll come to the UK eventually, even though we're not EU?
Yeah, so there. I've had my head in the EU for the last sort of 6 months, but basically the government has put out revision to gender pay gap reporting as part of the recent change to all the laws they put out. I've forgotten the name of it now. Sorry, recall is not my strong point.
You mean the Employment Rights Act?
Employment Rights Act. Thank you. Yeah. So gender pay gap reporting will have to change from next year to include much more transparency around pay, making sure it's not that dissimilar to the EU Pay Transparency Directive. And I know they've worked in the menopause side of things as well, which has sort of seems to have been bundled in with that somehow. I might have got that wrong, but I went on a call about it the other day. I went on a webinar and I was like, oh, okay, that seems like a strange place to have put that. So I don't know if it was just the webinar that had put those two things together or if it is a parcel of the same. But I think it might be because I think people were saying that, you can analyze your data. So if you're analyzing your data for pay gaps, you can look at things like turnover. So are we losing people at a certain age, of a certain gender, who could potentially be struggling with menopause? So yeah, it was interesting.
Oh, that is interesting. Yeah. So, gosh, I get carried away with these conversations. I always say 20 to 30 minutes, and here we are at 38. So, I will put the links to your website and your LinkedIn in the description of this video, which will be below here. How else can people get hold of you, or how can people get hold of your toolkit? When is it live in the world?
Wow, I am looking for testers right now. So going through testing stage just as well. The directive was delayed because so am I. Looking for testers right now. So just find me on LinkedIn, drop me a message. I've got a free assessment tool so you can have a look to see where your communications are at now and where you've got gaps versus the Pay Transparency Directive, and gives you a roadmap for how to close those. Connect with me on LinkedIn. there aren't many Hewson-Haworths around. And yeah, I can ping that over to you. Yeah, just take a look at the website, really. That's it.
Brilliant. Becky, thank you so much for joining me. I nerded out. I nerd out every week. I think I end every single one of these calls talking about how I nerded out yet again. But no,
I love nerding out. Love it.
Every so often you can feel a little disenfranchised with the whole world of HR sometimes and everything about it. And then you realize when you get into a conversation like this, you realize actually I do really love this stuff. I find it so interesting. So these conversations are great reminders of me that I do actually like my chosen career.
I mean, always good.
It's helpful given that you spend so much time doing it. Anyway, like I said, everybody, I will put the links below in the description, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can watch all of these conversations. Becky, thanks once again for joining me, and best of luck with the launch of your toolkit.
Thanks for having me, Kirsty.
Thank you.
Bye.